Before you keep watching, answer this honestly. What is it that is thinking inside you? Have you ever truly stopped and asked yourself, what is the thing that is thinking inside me? Not what you are thinking about, but what is it that is doing the thinking? When a thought suddenly appears, who is the one that notices it? When you feel angry, when you feel sad, when you love, or when fear quietly rises within you. What is it that knows you are angry, sad, or afraid? If you call that the mind, then tell me, where is this mind? Is it in your brain, in your heart, in your chest, or hidden somewhere in your memories, or in empty space? Wait, don't answer too quickly. Because more than 2,500 years ago, someone asked that exact same question, and the one being questioned was no ordinary person. It was Ānanda, the Buddha's closest disciple, the one with extraordinary memory, the one known as the most learned among them all. And yet, when the Buddha asked him, "Where is your mind right now?" Ānanda could not answer, not because he lacked intelligence, but because he was just like us. He believed he understood the mind, but had never truly seen it. And so, right there in front of the assembly, the Buddha did something very unusual. He did not give a lecture. He did not preach a doctrine. He did not offer any grand philosophical teaching. He simply asked questions, simple questions, but each one struck gently like a knock on the door of awareness, a door that had been sealed for countless lifetimes by one thing: our misunderstanding of what the mind truly is. Ānanda answered, 7 times, and all 7 times he was wrong. Not just wrong in the eyes of the Buddha, but wrong in relation to reality itself. Each of his answers was not just his own. They were reflections of everything human beings have always believed: that the mind is our thoughts, that it is what we see through the eyes, that it is what we feel in the body, that it is memory, that it is reaction, that it is awareness itself. But no, one by one, the Buddha gently dismantled all of these illusions, until finally Ānanda fell completely silent. And maybe, if you are truly listening right now, you might begin to feel something similar: a pause, a hesitation, a quiet disturbance inside. Because this is no longer Ānanda's story. This is your story. Mine, everyone's. We are all living, loving, worrying, searching for peace. And yet, we have never truly stopped to ask, what is my mind really? You can listen to hundreds of teachings, read thousands of scriptures, chant endlessly day after day. But if this one question remains unresolved, then perhaps you are still taking illusion as your mind, taking consciousness as your true nature, taking shadows as your identity. And if the foundation is mistaken, then, no matter how far you go, you are still walking in the wrong direction. That is why the Śūraṅgama Sūtra does not begin with teachings. It begins with a shock to perception. The Buddha does not teach. He asks, because within a truly deep question, the entire path is already contained. In Ānanda's confusion lies the confusion of all humanity. And in his awakening lies the doorway for all of us. So in this journey, I am not asking you to understand. I am asking you to be honest. Listen as if this is the first time you genuinely want to know. Who am I? Listen as if your life depends on it. Because in truth, it does. Why did the Buddha not teach, but only ask about the mind? Normally, when a disciple makes a mistake, what does a teacher do? They explain, they correct, they advise. Sometimes, they even scold. But in the Śūraṅgama Sūtra, something very different happens. After rescuing Ānanda from the subtle trap of Matangi's illusion, the Buddha does not reprimand him. He does not immediately teach him any doctrine. He does not give him a method to practice. Instead, he asks a single question: where is your mind? At first glance, it seems almost irrelevant. Why not ask? Why didn't you keep your precepts carefully? Why didn't you remain mindful? Why didn't you guard yourself against desire? Wouldn't those be more practical? But no, the Buddha does not go for the branches. He goes straight to the root, because he knows something crucial. If Ānanda is still mistaking illusion for his mind, then no matter how much he practices, he will still remain trapped in suffering. The problem was never the incident itself, not the temptation, not the loss of mindfulness, not even the external conditions. The real problem was something far deeper, a fundamental misunderstanding of what the mind is. Ānanda believed that the thinking, analyzing, discriminating awareness was his true mind, and that is exactly the same mistake we are making today. Every single day we live with something we call my mind, the thing that thinks, the thing that feels, the thing that reacts, the thing that worries, desires, and remembers. We believe, this is me, this is my inner world. But in reality, most of us are not living with the true mind. We are living with a continuous stream of thoughts, a stream made of memories, habits, emotional reactions, conditioned responses, and the subtle construction of the ego. In Buddhist psychology, this is called discriminating consciousness. In the Surangama Sutra, the Buddha calls it something even more striking: the shadow of the mind. It can think, it can analyze, it can recognize, but it is not real, because it is constantly changing, arising, and passing with conditions. And anything that depends on conditions cannot be your true nature. The Buddha understood this clearly, and he knew if this confusion is not seen through, then spiritual practice becomes nothing more than decoration, like putting makeup on a face that is already wearing a mask. No matter how refined your practice becomes, it is still built on a false foundation. And Ānanda was the perfect example. He was brilliant. He had heard more teachings than anyone else. He remembered every word of the Buddha flawlessly, but he practiced using memory, intellect, analysis, conceptual understanding. He understood, but he did not yet see. And because of that, when faced with subtle conditions like desire, attraction, illusion, his knowledge could not protect him, because knowledge operates on the surface, but illusion enters through the deepest assumptions about who we think we are. So instead of teaching another doctrine, the Buddha stepped back, all the way back to the very beginning, back to the most fundamental question. Do you even know what your mind is? Do you know where it is? This question is not asking for a location. It is not asking you to point to your head or your chest. It is designed to do something far more radical, to collapse the entire structure of dualistic thinking, the way we divide reality into inside and outside, self and other, mind and body, subject and object. This habit has been running unconsciously within us for countless lifetimes. And this single question, where is your mind, strikes directly at that hidden structure. It shakes the very foundation of the ego. And here is the most beautiful part. The Buddha does not demand a correct answer. He is not testing knowledge. He is inviting direct seeing, because intelligence can know, but only awareness can see. And only when you truly see can you be free. In today's world, we are surrounded by endless teachings, motivational content, spiritual techniques, healing methods, And yet, perhaps what we need most is not another answer, but the right question, a question that touches the deepest confusion, the most fragile assumption, the place where truth and illusion blur, a question that if we dare to face it, can change our entire life. And 2,500 years ago, in absolute stillness, the Buddha asked that question, not just to Ānanda, but to you, to me, to all of us. Where is your mind? 7 answers. 7 mistakes. The 7 illusions we all live by. Not everyone would dare to answer the Buddha, but Ānanda did. He did not pretend to be enlightened. He did not hide his confusion. He did not escape into silence. He answered honestly, and because of that honesty, he was wrong 7 times. But listen carefully. These are not just Ānanda's mistakes. They are our mistakes. Each answer he gave is a layer of illusion that almost every human being has unknowingly accepted as truth. So in this part, we are not here to judge Ānanda. We are here to recognize ourselves, to slowly remove one by one the masks we have been wearing for countless lifetimes. 1. First, answer. The mind is inside the body. Ānanda said, "My mind is inside my body because I see, hear, and feel from within." It sounds reasonable. It sounds obvious. It feels true. We all say, "I see, I hear, I feel," and we assume that this I is located somewhere inside this body. But the Buddha asked gently, if your mind is inside your body, then when you see something, why can't you see the inside of your body, your heart, your organs, your brain? Why do you only see the outside world? Pause for a moment. If the mind were truly inside, shouldn't it perceive from the inside outward, like a lamp shining from within a cave? But it doesn't. We see outside. We do not see inside. So how can the mind be located within the body? Ānanda had no answer. And if you are honest, neither do we. 2. Second answer. The mind is outside the body. Ānanda adjusted his view. If it's not inside, then the mind must be outside, observing the body from the outside. Again logical, again reasonable. But the Buddha asked, if your mind is outside your body, then when you close your eyes, why do you not see anything? If the mind were outside, closing your eyes should not matter. You should still perceive. But you don't. When the eyes close, vision disappears. This means perception depends on the body. So the mind cannot be completely outside either. 3. Third answer. The mind is in the eyes. Ānanda refined further. Then the mind must be in the eyes because we see through them. This feels even more convincing. But the Buddha asked, if the mind is in the eyes, then when the eyes are closed, shouldn't the mind still remain there? And if it remains, why is there no seeing? Then he added, the eyes are like windows. They allow light to enter, but the light is not inside the window. The eyes are only a condition, not the source. So the mind cannot be located in the eyes. What Ānanda called mind was only a function of perception, not the true nature of awareness. 4. Fourth answer, the mind is in what we see. Ānanda continued, then my mind must be in the images I see because my mind arises with them. This is extremely subtle. When we see something beautiful, we feel something. When we see something disturbing, we react. So we assume that reaction, that movement is my mind. But the Buddha asked, if your mind is in the external image, then when the image disappears, does your mind disappear as well? And more importantly, what is it that knows the image has disappeared? This is a powerful turning point. Because here lies a very common mistake. Taking the object as the mind, we think, I am my emotions, I am what I feel, I am what I experience. But these are only responses, like waves on water, like reflections in a mirror. They are not the source. 5. Fifth answer. The mind is like empty space. Now Ānanda goes deeper. Then the mind must be like space, vast, formless everywhere. This sounds spiritual, almost enlightened. But the Buddha immediately pointed out, if the mind is like empty space, then how can it distinguish colors, form sounds? Space does not know anything, but the mind knows, so how can they be the same? This is a subtle trap, confusing the mind with emptiness as nothingness. Thinking, if I have no thoughts, if I become blank, that must be the true mind. But that is not awakening. That is falling into voidness, a kind of unconscious emptiness. The true mind is not blank. It is aware. 6. Sixth answer. The mind is the point of contact. Ānanda tried again. The mind is where the senses meet the world, where seeing, hearing, touching happen. In other words, the mind is the interaction between subject and object. But the Buddha asked, if the mind only exists when there is contact, then when there is no contact, does the mind disappear? And further, who is it that knows whether there is contact or not? Contact arises and disappears constantly. It depends on conditions. But the true mind cannot be something that appears and disappears. 7. Seventh answer. The mind is discriminating awareness. Finally, Ānanda gave the answer most people today would agree with. The mind is the ability to think, to distinguish, to recognize, to know good and bad, right and wrong, hot and cold, like and dislike. This feels like the most accurate answer. But the Buddha asked one final question. When you are dreaming, you see, feel, experience entire worlds. Who is aware in the dream? And when you wake up, who knows that you were dreaming? The discriminating mind is not always present. It changes. It appears. It disappears. Therefore, it cannot be the true mind. It is only consciousness, conditioned, unstable, dependent, not the ultimate nature. And at this point, Ānanda had nothing left. No arguments, no concepts, no theories. Everything he believed collapsed, and he fell into complete silence. Not the silence of ignorance, but the silence when everything false has been stripped away. And if you have followed closely, you may begin to feel something inside you starting to shift, something subtle, cracking, because everything you thought was your mind. Thoughts, emotions, reactions, perceptions, awareness itself, none of them are it. So then, what is the true mind? If seeing, hearing, and knowing are not the mind, then what is? At this point, something unsettling begins to happen. If the mind is not inside the body, outside the body, in the eyes, in the objects we perceive, in empty space, in the point of contact, or even in our ability to think and distinguish, then what is left? Is there even such a thing as mind, or have we been chasing something that doesn't exist? This is the moment where most people begin to feel lost, because everything we have relied on, everything we have used to define ourselves, starts to collapse. And that collapse is not a mistake. It is necessary, because only when the false falls apart can the real begin to reveal itself. The Buddha did not rush to give an answer. He did not say, "This is the mind, that is the mind." Instead, he continued to point out what the mind is not. Why? Because the true mind cannot be captured by concepts. It cannot be described, defined, or contained in words. It can only be seen directly. Let's look deeper. The Buddha asked Ānanda, "When you see a flower, Does that seeing exist by itself, or does it depend on conditions? Ānanda replied, It depends on conditions. There must be eyes. There must be an object. There must be light. There must be attention. Only then seeing occurs. And the Buddha said, then that seeing is not real, because anything that depends on conditions arises, changes, disappears, and whatever is impermanent cannot be your true nature. This is a critical turning point because we are living almost entirely inside this conditional awareness. We say, I see, I hear, I feel, I think, and we assume this is me. But all of these experiences depend on something else. They come and go. They are influenced by the body, the environment, the senses, memory, emotion, desire. So how can something so unstable be who you truly are? The Buddha is not denying these experiences. He is not saying they don't exist. He is simply saying, do not mistake them for your true mind. They are tools. They are functions. They are processes. But they are not the source. Imagine this. You are holding a camera. The camera captures images. It records moments. It reacts to light. But you are not the image. You are not the lens. You are not the recording. And yet, most of us are living as if I am the picture. I am what I see. I am what I feel. This confusion is the root of suffering, because whatever you identify with, you become attached to, and whatever you are attached to, you will eventually lose. So then, what is the true mind? The Buddha does not answer directly, because the moment you turn it into an idea, it becomes false again. But he gives us a hint, a very subtle one. He points towards something that does not depend on conditions, something that does not come and go, does not increase or decrease, does not change with what is seen, heard, or thought, something that is always present but rarely noticed. Have you ever experienced this? A moment when your mind becomes completely still, no thoughts, no emotions, no reactions, and yet you are still aware. You still exist. You still know that you are there, but there is no thinking involved, no labeling, no judging, no interpreting, just a clear, silent presence. That is closer to the true mind, not the thinking, not the reacting, not the analyzing, but the pure awareness that remains even when everything else disappears. It does not try to understand. It does not try to control. It does not try to become anything. It's simply pointing right index finger is. But here is the challenge. We are so used to living in noise, thinking, reacting, judging, remembering, that when silence appears, we overlook it, or worse, we become uncomfortable with it. So we go back to thinking again, back to the familiar, back to the illusion. The Buddha is pointing us in the opposite direction, not toward more knowledge, not toward more thinking, but toward direct seeing, seeing without adding meaning, hearing without reacting, being aware without becoming anything. And yet, even this description is not accurate, because the true mind cannot be described, it cannot be held, it cannot be grasped, it can only be recognized. So now the question becomes, are you willing to let go of everything you thought your mind was, to step into a space where there is nothing to hold on to? Because right there, at the edge of not knowing, something real begins to appear. Now we arrive at the most important moment. After everything has been stripped away, after every assumption has been questioned, after every answer has been dismantled, a single question remains. So where is the mind? At this point, Ānanda is silent. The entire assembly is silent. And if you have truly followed this journey, you may also begin to feel a kind of silence within yourself. But this is not the silence of confusion. It is not the silence of I don't know. It is something deeper. It is the silence that appears when everything you thought you knew begins to fall apart. All your conclusions gone. All your definitions gone. All your concepts gone. There is nothing left to hold on to. No idea feels solid anymore. No answer feels certain. And in that moment, a space opens. A space that has no name, no form, no beginning, no ending. It is not a thought. It is not a feeling. It is not even something you can understand. And yet, it is undeniably present. This is where the true mind begins to reveal itself. The Buddha never says, "The mind is here, the mind is there." He does not point to a location. He does not define it in any way. Instead, he removes everything that is false, layer by layer, assumption by assumption, until there is nothing left to cling to. And when there is nothing left, what remains does not need to be explained, because it is already there. The true mind is not inside, is not outside, is not in between, is not something you can locate. It does not belong to any category that the intellect can grasp. It is not a thought, an emotion, a perception, a memory. It is not something that arises, and it is not something that disappears. It does not come. It does not go. It is not created. It cannot be destroyed. And because of that, every attempt to define it fails from the very beginning. So what did the Buddha actually do? He did not give knowledge. He created a direct experience. Imagine this. You have been sitting in a dark room your entire life. You have studied the idea of light. You have read about it, discussed it, analyzed it, but you have never actually seen it. Then suddenly, a lamp is lit. Does the light need to explain itself? No, it simply appears, and everything becomes clear. The true mind is like that. It does not need proof. It does not need explanation. When it is recognized, it is obvious. But here is the paradox. No one can show it to you. No teacher can give it to you. No words can capture it. You can only see it for yourself. And how do you see it? Not by adding more knowledge, but by letting go of what you think you know, what you believe you are, what you have always identified with. Because the truth is, your mind has never been absent, not even for a single moment. You did not lose it. You only mistook it for something else. You mistook thoughts for mind, emotions for mind, reactions for mind, awareness for mind. And in that confusion, you lost sight of what was always there. But now, if you are truly present, you might begin to sense something very subtle, very quiet. A kind of presence that does not depend on anything, that does not try to become anything. That simply pointing right index finger is, it does not belong to you. And yet, it is never separate from you. It is not somewhere, and yet it is everywhere. It cannot be named, but somehow you already recognize it. And when this recognition happens, something very gentle arises. Not excitement, not pride, not achievement, but a quiet smile. Because you realize nothing was missing, nothing needed to be added, nothing needed to be attained. The mind you were searching for was always here. And from this point on, life begins to change. Not because you gained something, but because you stopped holding on to what was never real. You are Ānanda. This dialogue is happening within you right now. At this point, something important must be said. This story is not about Ānanda. Not really. It is about you. The conversation that took place more than 2,500 years ago is not in the past. It is happening right now inside your own mind. Every time the Buddha asked, "Where is your mind?" and Ānanda answered, "Have you noticed? you have answered the same way. You have believed, my mind is inside my body. My mind is what I think. My mind is what I feel. My mind is my awareness. And just like Ānanda, every one of those answers feels completely true until you begin to look deeper. If you have ever believed any of these, then understand this. You are Ānanda, not symbolically, but directly. There is no distance of time, no separation of history, no difference in essence. The confusion he experienced is the same confusion living in you the moment he stood in silence. Unsure, exposed, with nothing left to rely on, that moment exists within you too. Because sooner or later, every human being who sincerely seeks truth will arrive at the same place. A place where knowledge fails, concepts collapse, certainty disappears, and one question remains. What is it that I truly am? You may think, I am just an ordinary person. I haven't studied deeply. I don't understand much about spirituality, but that doesn't matter, because Ānanda himself, despite all his knowledge, still did not see. And what truly matters is not how much you know, but whether you are willing to look honestly. Ānanda did not run away. He did not pretend. He did not defend his understanding. He stayed in confusion, in vulnerability, in silence. And that is why the doorway opened for him. This is the most important lesson. Awakening does not begin with knowledge. It begins with honesty. The honesty to admit, maybe what I think I know is not true. Maybe what I call my mind is not the real mind. And when that honesty appears, something shifts. You stop trying to fill the space with new ideas. You stop chasing new teachings to replace the old ones. Instead, you begin to stay with the question, what is my mind? Really, what is it that is aware right now? And if you stay long enough, without escaping, without rushing to conclusions, without replacing it with beliefs, you may begin to feel something very subtle, a quiet stillness, not created, not forced, a presence that does not belong to thought. It is not something you can describe, but it is undeniably there. And from that place, something begins to awaken, not dramatically, not explosively, but gently, like light slowly appearing at the edge of darkness. And when that happens, you begin to understand something profound. The path is not about becoming something new. It is about seeing what has always been here. Ānanda did not gain enlightenment. He lost something. He lost his certainty, his concepts, his attachment to knowledge, his identity as the one who understands. And in losing all of that, he became available to truth. You can do the same right now. You don't need more teachings. You don't need a new method. You don't need to go anywhere. You only need one thing, the courage to face the question fully. What is my mind? Not as an idea, not as philosophy, but as a living inquiry. And if you are willing to stay with it, something extraordinary may happen. You may begin to hear, not with your ears, but from somewhere much deeper, a silence that is not empty, a knowing that does not think, a presence that has always been here. And in that moment, you will realize the Buddha was never far, Ānanda was never separate. This entire dialogue has always been unfolding within you. And now, it is your turn, pointing right index finger. Let's complete it. Now, we arrive at the end of this journey. But if you have truly listened, you already know this is not an ending, because the question has not been answered. And that is exactly the point. The Buddha did not give Ānanda a final definition. He did not say, this is the mind, this is the truth. Instead, he brought Ānanda to a place where no answer could survive, a place where thinking cannot reach, concepts cannot hold, language cannot define, And in that place, something completely different appears. Not an answer, but a direct seeing. This is the great turning point, because the mind cannot be found as an object. It cannot be pointed to. It cannot be described. It cannot be captured. But it can be recognized, not through effort, not through analysis, not through belief, but through a simple silent realization. What I have been looking for is what is looking. Let that sink in. The one searching for the mind is already the mind. But because we are constantly thinking, labeling, reacting, identifying, we never turn back to see the one who is aware. We are always looking outward, at objects, at thoughts, at experiences. But we rarely ask, what is it that is seeing all of this? And that is the doorway. Not a philosophical question, not a mental exercise, but a direct turning inward. Not toward thoughts, not toward feelings, but toward the very act of seeing itself. Because the Buddha is about to reveal something extraordinary. The true nature of mind is not in what is seen, but in the seeing itself, not the object, but the knowing of the object. And this knowing is not created. It does not begin when something appears. It does not end when something disappears. It is always here, silent, clear, unmoving, and yet it illuminates everything. You have been seeing your entire life, but have you ever seen the seeing? You have heard countless sounds, but have you ever heard the hearing? You have lived through endless experiences, but have you ever noticed the one that never changes through all of them? That is the next door. And this is why the Buddha did not stop with the question. After breaking all of Ānanda's assumptions, after dissolving every false identity, he began to point, not to something new, but to something that had always been present, the seeing nature, the awareness that does not come, does not go, does not belong to the body, does not depend on conditions, the awareness that remains, even when everything else disappears. That is the entrance to the true mind, and that is where the next journey begins. So before we end, don't rush away. Don't try to conclude. Don't turn this into another idea. Instead, just stay for a moment, right here, without trying to understand, without trying to define. Just notice. Something is aware right now. Not your thoughts, not your emotions, but the simple fact that you are aware. Stay with that, not as a concept, but as a direct experience, because that may be the closest you have ever been to the truth. And from here, everything changes, not because you become someone else, but because you finally stop mistaking yourself for what you are not. And maybe, one day, you will sit in front of someone who is searching, confused, restless, just like you once were, and you won't need to explain anything. You won't need to teach. You will simply smile and ask, "Where is your mind?"